Hi, I wanted to talk a little bit about applying pastel. I've learned through trial and error over the years how to apply pastel in different ways. When I first started using pastel, especially on sanded paper like UArt or Wallace, I just had such a heavy hand and filled up the tooth of that pastel so quickly, and I used to wash it off, pat it dry, flatten it out, work on it again, and I just learned over the years to have a much lighter hand when I apply pastels. So I have some things sitting out here. I thought I would just talk about that a little bit because it takes such a long time to learn how to use any medium. I think it just doesn't come overnight, but you can get a few tips, pointers from other people, which I didn't have. Everything I know I learned from reading people's blogs and watching YouTube and everything probably many of you are doing. So what I have is I have a piece of UArt paper, sanded paper. I've got some compressed charcoal. I've got just a few pastel colors, like 3 of kind of a neutral red, orange, kind of a rust color, a darker one, and then some hard pastel and some Spectrafix. And I've tested out some of the pastels on some paper towels. That's what I do a lot of times to kind of figure out what colors I want to use as I test them out on paper towels. So, and then I also have a little fan brush. So those are the materials that I have. I'm going to switch and go to that side and just work a little bit on this. This is going to be a real short video. Okay, now I am going to apply some pastel to this small piece of sanded paper, just to kind of show it's not like an expert technique, but it's just some of the things that I do. So let's say I'm just going to make horizontal lines with the charcoal. And this just might be enough. I could use alcohol to brush this around, or I could just use some Spectrafix, either one, but I'll use the Spectrafix because I can just squirt this on. And if I could brush it around a little bit with this brush, which I really like to do with the fan brush, as you can see, look at the cool kinds of lines that just brushing it with the fan brush does. So I really like that a lot because now not just the lines I made with the charcoal, but also the brushing it with this. Now I'll need to clean this out in order to use it on some other colors. But let's say I want to put some kind of an underpainting here besides that charcoal. I'll use some hard pastel. The hard pastel isn't going to be as soft. It's going to be a lighter layer. So what I want to do with the pastels is I want to work from a light layer and build those layers up. If I put a lot of pastel in right away, here's another piece, but if I really press down like that, that's a heavy layer of pastel. It's going to be more difficult to build and to layer as I go. So I really need to start with those thin layers with a lighter hand and work my way up. So let's say I want to put in kind of an underpainting. I'm going to put this around this rust color, and I can brush that again with my brush. I didn't wash this, so it's got a little bit of alcohol in it. But look at, this can create a nice underpainting for me. And so this is really similar to if you were painting and you were, I know when I first learned to paint early on in college, the instructor said, fat over lean. And that's how I think about pastel too. I think I want to have those thin, lean layers at first, and I want to be able to build up as I go. So that's what I have here, and that needs to dry a little bit. So maybe I will take okay. So now I have this dried. It really needed to be dried. You know, you could work pastel into a wet surface. It's just going to have a different type of a feel, but it's going to, you know, if it's wet, it's really going to pick up that pastel a lot, and I just want to layer it a little bit. So this is almost the same color as the color I put down in the hard pastel, but I'll put that down and move that around. I like to also think about dark, medium, and light. I think I'll put some of this down. I might need to even pick some darker. But, you know, if I put it down light, see, I can just really build those layers. I think I'm going to choose a dark, kind of a bluish gray, if I can find one. Maybe I can put that in here. It's very neutral. I'd kind of like to have something on the bluer end of, so let's see what I can find here. Here's one. Got a little blue tinge to it that I think is kind of nice. So if I use where I put the dark charcoal and I layer some of my darker pastels there, and I'm using the side of the pastel, I can use the tips for some lines, but I really like kind of focusing on the side of the pastel. Now here's a little brighter color. Where could I put that? How about I put a little over here? Ooh, that's nice. And even some kind of a red would be kind of a nice color. So I'm really kind of sticking with this kind of rust. I really think probably something lighter over in that direction. And I think as I've started to work on this, I thought, well, maybe I need something that is a little bit so the pastels that I use are Unison pastels, and I take the labels off of all of the pastels. Why do I use those? Because that's what was available when I started buying pastels and went to Blick in Iowa City to get my pastels, and that's what they had, so I could look at them, I could pick them out. But now I like these colors. This is, you know, pretty neutral. And let's see, what other colors did I pick out? This is kind of a nice color, very light. Green would be nice because red and green go really well together. those complementary colors. So let's see about this olive. That's kind of nice. But see, if I have a lighter hand, I can build these layers up, and it makes, instead of having one color, I've got several together. I'm layering this as I go. And I like to move the color around. I don't want to really press down and get too heavy-handed. I can do that a little bit more at the end. I think I'll put a little bit more of this down here. That's kind of nice. So I have a lot of more textural. Now I can go back in and put some lines. I like this blue-gray in there. I think that's a really kind of a nice color. I could drag that over some of these other areas. Maybe even find a lighter version, which might even be maybe something like that. That pop of turquoise. Someone in a workshop told me, another instructor had told them that every artwork needs a little bit of turquoise. So I like this real neutral kind of ochre going over some of these colors. So now if I want to get a little heavier with, let's see what that would be like. Really bear down on it. See how I get that cover, that it's almost like having a full paintbrush, you know, putting down that heavy application. I just don't like to do that so soon, right away, because I want to be able to build up those layers. And it also with this, because this is a kind of a little bit more sanded piece of UArt, it picks up some of the texture of the UArt paper. So I would encourage you maybe to take old pieces of paper, wash them off, pat them dry, just practice that pastel application of fat over lean, thicker over thinner. Start with a wash, maybe put some charcoal down, and just make small little studies and limit your use of color. And you know, this could be very helpful for me in the future if I think, well, I like those color combinations. Now I think I'm going to use this for something a little bit larger.